Hey everyone, we are back and we are in the last section, 1-6, solving two-step equations. And now we're going to be doing solving two-step equations within story problems. So let's look at our first example. It says a mechanic's bill to repair Mr. Wong's car was $650. The mechanic charges $45 an hour for labor, and the parts that were used cost $443. How many hours did the mechanic work on the car? Okay. So the mechanic's bill to repair Mr. Wong's car was $650. The mechanic charges $45 an hour for labor, and the parts that were used cost $443. How many hours did the mechanic work on the car? All right, so what is the thing that we don't know? Usually, the thing that we don't know is always in the question at the end. So how many hours did the mechanic work? So we don't know how many hours the mechanic worked on the car, right? So that's really going to be our variable. So we're going to go ahead and define our variable, and this is what you need to do. So let's just say hours worked. Okay, so let's just say let H equal the number of hours the mechanic worked. Okay. All right, so we defined our variable. Okay, now I don't know if you guys have ever been to a mechanic or shop, or you know how it works, but usually what you have is you have a total bill. All right, so that's how much you owe the mechanic, and that total bill is made up of some different things. The first thing it's made up is how much the mechanic gets paid, right? So mechanic's wage, that's not how you spell mechanic. Oh yeah, it is. Mechanic's wage multiplied by the number of hours they work. Number of hours they work. Okay, so that's in the total. So how much they get paid times the number of hours they work. But also, usually if a mechanic is fixing a car, it's because something's broken in the car. So they have to go buy parts. And so you have to pay for the parts that are the new parts that are new or used. Sometimes they use used ones because used ones they still work, okay? But the cost of parts that are put in. So cost of parts. So that's really what your total bill is made up of. It's the mechanic's wage multiplied by the number of hours that they worked plus the cost of parts. So that's what we're going to use to set up our equation. So the total bill, what is the total bill? Well, the total bill is $650 equals the mechanic's wage. The mechanic charges $45 an hour for labor. Okay, so that's our 45 multiplied by the number of hours they worked. Well, that's the bit we don't know, but we defined it as a variable. That's going to be H plus the cost of parts. And the parts were used cost $443. So that is our equation. So whenever we are moving into higher and higher algebra, we are going to be setting up equations for every single time we get a story problem. So that's what we're going to be doing. So here we go. The key is to define the variable, what do you not know, and then set up the equation. So now we're just going to use our algebra skills and solve it. So we're trying to figure out what H is. And so remember, we are going to get rid of the things that are furthest away from H first, which would be this. And it's how is 443 related to H? Well, through addition. So we're going to do the inverse operation, which would be subtraction to both sides. Ooh. And what is that? That little subtraction there. That would be 0. That's a 4, and then that would be 2. 207. Perfect. And then we're going to get H by itself. So we are going to, how is 45 related to H? It's related through multiplication. So we are going to do the inverse operation, which would be division. We're going to divide both sides by 45. And I'm going to go to my little scratch paper over here and do this long division. 207 divided by 45. Well, 45 doesn't go into 2. It doesn't go into 20. Does it go into 207? Yes. How many times? I'm going to say it goes in 4 times. 4 times 5 is 20. Write the 0. Carry the 2. 4 times 4 is 16 plus 2 is 18. We're going to go ahead and subtract. 7 minus 0 is 7. Borrow from the 2. 10 minus 8 is 2. Make that a 1. All right, and we have a remainder, so we want to keep going. I'm going to add the 0, add the decimal, and drop that 0 like it's hot. How many times does 45 go into 270? I'm going to say it goes in 6 times. 6 times 5 is 30. Write the 0, carry the 3. 6 times 4 is 24, plus 3 is 27. And there we go, no remainder. That is our answer. 4.6. So we want to go ahead and how many hours did the mechanic work on the car? We want to say the mechanic worked 4.6 hours on the car. And that is our final answer. All right, now it is time for you to try this problem. So remember, when you do it, I want you to read the question, figure out what the variable is, define the variable like we did here, okay? Then write an equation, and then go ahead and solve and answer your problem in a complete sentence. Okay, so now it is time for you to pause pause your laptop, pause your computer, go ahead and work this problem out, and then come back when you're done to check the answer. All right, we'll see you in a bit. Bye. Okay, we are back. I'm going to go ahead and read this problem. The mechanic's bill to repair your car was $850. The mechanic charges $35 an hour for labor, and the parts were used cost $275. How many hours did the mechanic work on your car? Okay, this is a lot like the problem that we just solved. So the first thing that we want to do is figure out our variable. What's the thing that we don't know? Well, the thing that we don't know is how many hours did the mechanic work on the car? So how many hours did the mechanic work on the car? Okay, that's going to be our variable. So let's just go ahead and define that. Let H equal number of hours the mechanic worked. All right, we did it. Okay, and this again is a mechanic. So this problem is really, it's one of the total bill equals the mechanic's wage multiplied by the number of hours they worked plus the cost of parts. So that's really what we're going to be using to set up our equation. So the total bill, what was the total bill? Well, it says the cost was $850. So here we go, 850 equals, what was the mechanic's wage? $35 times the number of hours they worked, which is H, so I'm just going to write 35H, plus the cost of parts, which the cost was $275. All right, we have our equation. That is awesome right there. So we defined our variable. We have our equation. Now we're just going to go ahead and use our, oh, you can't even see it. There you go. Not bad. Okay, we defined our variable. We have our equation. Now we're just going to use our wonderful algebra skills to figure this out. So we're solving for H. 35 is right next to it, so we want to get rid of the most outer thing first, which is this 275. Inverse operation would be subtraction. And so those cancel. We are left with, this is a 5, that's a 4, 7, 5 equals 35 over H. Perfect. We're trying to figure out what h is, so the 35 is there. It's related to the h through multiplication, so we're going to do the inverse operation, which would be division. Divide both sides by 35. 35 divided by 35 is 1. 1 times h is just h. So now we've isolated h, and we just need to do this little long division here. 575, I'm going to go over here to my scratch. I don't want to do this right in the middle of the problem because it just gets everything really super messy. So whenever you're doing any calculations like this, go ahead and just do them on the side. 35 doesn't go into 5. It goes into 57 one time. 1 times 35 is just 35. And then 7 minus 5 is 2. 5 minus 3 is 2. We drop this 5 like it's hot. Okay. Let's see here. How many times does 35 go into 225? I'm going to say it goes in 6 times. 6 times 5 is 30. Write the 0, carry the 3. 6 times 3 is 18 plus 3 is 21. Now we're going to subtract. 5 take away 0 is 5. 2 take away 1 is 1. Okay, we still have a remainder, so we're going to keep going. I'm going to add that decimal, add the 0, drop it like it's hot. Okay, 35 goes into 150 about probably 4 times. 4 times 5 is 20. Write the 0, carry the 2. 4 times 3 is 12. Plus 2 is 14. Okay, this is 0. That's 1. Okay, we still have a remainder. That means we're still going to keep going. Drop it like it's hot. 35 goes into 100. Well, I know it doesn't go in 3 times, so it's going to go in 2 times. And 2 times 5 is 0. Carry the 1. 2 times 3 is 6 plus 1 is 70. Okay, it looks like this bad boy is just going to keep going and going and going. So if we're talking about, remember we're talking about the number of hours that the mechanic worked. I'm good with just saying, rounding this to, and just saying he worked 16.4 hours at this point, because this isn't a problem that needs to be super, super duper technical into the hundredths and thousandths of a decimal. So we're good here. Let's just say we're gonna answer it in a complete sentence. The mechanic worked 16.4 hours on the car. That's a lot of hours. They must have had a lot of things wrong with their car. Okay. And if you got that problem right and you defined your variables and you wrote the equation and then did all your wonderful algebra and your little long division off to the side, and then you wrote your answer in a complete sentence and put a box around it, Yoka denkimashita, you did a good job. All right, see you later. Peace out.